Hello everyone, sorry that I didn't upload yesterday, but there will be a video tomorrow as well, and I hope you guys enjoy, and let's get started, shall we? Not that you would ever truly go through with it, of course. You're a decent law-abiding citizen without such as a single violent bone in your entire body. Your life's just a little boring. Wasn't so terrible that you would do something so incredibly stupid that would risk you spending the rest of your days behind a rusty cage, right? Yet still those thoughts would continue to linger. I used to think it was completely normal for people to think so highly of themselves, to think they would be able to get away with murder. Mankind is such a narcissistic species after all. However, soon the very question began to nag and nag inside my head, relentlessly bombarding my mind to the point of being unable to think of anything else no matter how I tried. Could I actually get away with it? No, there would be no way in hell that I'd actually consider doing something so horrible just to prove a point. It was a stupid thought. I just had a silly little hypothetical fantasy created in my head. A sheer need of entertainment and morbid curiosity. I swore on my mother's grave I was just as normal as the next door neighbor. What about the next door neighbor? The thought popped into my head, unwillingly pestering like an unstable itch. The resident is 305, is a single medical student from Georgia, a long way away from home. I am sure no one would miss her. No, absolutely not. It was too close. Surely the authorities would suspect someone within the immediate residence, and any shred of evidence that could be found nearby would definitely lead them straight to my doorstep. And that'd be the end of it. What was I even thinking? Have I truly gone off the deep end? All I knew was that I had a new unquenchable urge to put myself to this test. Maybe if I did it once, just once, it would all cease and I'd be able to take control back of my life. But for now, the thoughts festered. They started to keep me up at night, and so I decided I had to do it. But who? I took a jog down to the park by the following week to see if I couldn't get a grasp on reality. Maybe the fresh air would serve to calm my nerves and help me finally put these insane thoughts to rest, but I was very wrong. As I approached the play area of the park, I instantly took notice of a young boy, probably no more than 4 years old, wandering by alone. The woman, who I assume was the mother, sat staring at her cell phone a good few yards away, not even aware of her own child who was just walking up there to complete unhinged strangers. It would be so easy. The little voice in the head began to ring incessantly. I stopped for a moment and immediately slapped myself so hard that the left side of my face turned red and stung. I'm not a monster, losing my sanity perhaps, but a child? Never. Although I probably couldn't have minded offing the mother for being such a careless moron, nevertheless, that would not be my first victim. Once that followed, I began to meticulously plan every crucial minute detail leading up to my first victim. I drafted out the perfect times, locations, and possible candidates I felt would garner the least amount of attention in any third party. I even studied obsessively over the work of so many killers before me. Jack, the Zodiac, Ted, Gacy. I noted their strengths and their weaknesses, making sure I didn't make any of the mistakes that they would. With my targets in mind, it seemed I was all set to go. However, as we all know, things rarely ever go to the way you planned. It was through the grapevine that I came to discover a Frederick Stoltz, a former German police officer who had been rotting away alone in some godforsaken retirement home upstate. It was too perfect. What better potential victim than an actual fucking Nazi? All alone, without a single person to care for, barely grasping to life as it was, and surely no one would dare to miss him. In all honesty, it would be more of a public service to just put him out of his misery. It would be the perfect crime. I slipped by into a building under the disguise of a volunteer over the next few months. It wasn't easy by any means, but I made sure to steadily earn old Frederick's respect. I spent numerous days listening to his stories, forcing myself to smile and laugh, making nice if only the moment. Oh, if only did Frankie knew what was to come. I tried my very best not to break my composure in front of him so many times, barely able to keep in my excitement and joy over his viral demise. Over my time at the home, I managed to equip myself well with the various tools and drugs needed to carry out my nefarious plot, and so time had finally become to satisfy my urge. It was on that fateful night in May when my life would change completely. The day had carried on as if it was any other typical shift at the home. I would greet and converse with my fellow peers over the typical topics like sports and weather. I would clean and look after the miserable old fossils as they purred out the reminder of their sad and lonely lives, and finally I would make my way into Frederick's room for his daily dose of vitamins and our routine chat. Little did he know that this would be his last day on Earth. Quite nothing in the world that can ever truly prepare you for this moment that you take someone else's life. Sometimes they never manage to accurately portray it in the movies as that glazed look in the victim's eyes the moment the life is slowly draining out of them. Pure horror, shock, remorse, pain, and eventually acceptance. A dozen emotions firing off at once and then suddenly ended. This is the look old Frederick gave me as he realized what had just occurred, grunting effortlessly as my syringe pierced deep into the base of his neck, fighting but bravely for his life before succumbing to the poison cocktail that I injected into his blood. They're proud, admiring my work, reveling in the satisfaction I so longed and waited patiently for. All there was left for me to do was slip out of the room and pass off Schultz's death as an unfortunate accident. It could have been so simple, but alas, I realized I had forgotten locking the door behind me. I failed to notice one of the nurses, Elizabeth Stevens, standing right behind me, jaw gaping in her terrifying expression. Up until that moment, I had made it a point to stay away from unnecessarily harming any innocent civilians. I had supposed an attempt to hold on to my humanity, desperately clinging to any existent shred of morality I had left. Nothing else I could have done. Seconds felt like hours as we stood staring at each other down in a deadlock. Head trembling of her bottom lip as she was whimpering, eyes widening. I could tell she was about to scream. Silence her, the voice in my head was screaming now. Couldn't afford to toss months of planning down the drain just to lose it all right then and there. It was too close. Kill her now. My head was throbbing fast, my entire body burning. Without a second thought, I quickly reached into the back of my pocket for a scalpel. Forward as I quickly thrust it open up her throat. There was just that look again, tears widening in her eyes. Blood quickly filled her mouth as she tried to speak in vain. As I watched her slowly choke on her own blood, I realized how good it fucking felt. Calmness that would simply wash over me. No throbbing headaches, no nagging voices, only sweet tranquility. I smiled at Elizabeth as I slowly twisted the blade further inside her. She gasped for her final breath, and finally, there was the acceptance. After a thorough cleanup of the unexpected mess, I carried Elizabeth's body into Frederick's old wheelchair, covering it with a blanket as I slipped out into the night, never to be heard of or seen from again. Frederick's murder was found to be an accidental overdose, perhaps a mix of her poor and health age. Elizabeth's corpse was eventually discovered by a fisherman after I had left her body completely unrecognizable and dumped her out to sea. The media pleaded for weeks for any information regarding her murder, but by the end it was already too late. There wasn't any suspicions. I had first set out on my dark journey to answer one burning question that festered in my mind. Could I get away with it? I finally had my answer, yet I was still somewhat unsatisfied. Today marks the 6th year anniversary of Frederick and Elizabeth's murders, my very first victim in years after I only continued to hone my abilities to kill unexpected victims and make sure that they were never found. So I write this letter to you, Detective Peters. How many more innocent people will die under your watch? I admit that I was a sick man, Detective. I deserve, no fucking need to be locked away, but that doesn't mean I'm willing to spoil the game. The voices won't allow it. There's a present waiting for you back at your office that's beneath your desk. You'll find coordinates leading to one of my latest victims in your first clue. Till then, Detective, the clock is ticking. I hope you guys enjoyed that story. I found it on the No Sleep subreddit. The writer of the story was Night Terror 1229. So if you guys want to read it yourself, he put comments in there if you want to read up following the story. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and new video tomorrow. Have a great day.